All right, we have a topic here called geometry, and oh boy, I'm not going to cover all of geometry, I can tell you that. But geometry does come up in physics, and I've just summarized on the key concepts page some formulas that might be good to occasionally be familiar with. Well, there are a few of them there that maybe get a little bit exotic, particularly the one at the very bottom, I think came up in an earlier example involving units balancing, and I said then that it was maybe a somewhat exotic formula. And nowadays, you can, like, if you need to know the volume of a cone, you can just Google that, right? But it's still good to have some familiarity. So for a rectangle, what do you think P stands for there? It's equal to 2 times a W plus 2 times an L. Would it make sense if that like was width and length for W and L? And that would be the perimeter, right? Because if you walk around a rectangle, you're going to have to walk the width kind of back and forth twice, and then you have to walk back and forth the length twice as you go around the perimeter. So if you've done all that and then you added up all those distances, you get the perimeter. So as you can tell, I kind of like to look at these formulas and kind of visualize them to make sure they make sense, even though you could Google that formula, I guess. Area, length times width, we should all kind of know that. Hopefully no one's going to say I'm going to Google that. Circle, we should also know some things like circumference there. I said just C for circumference because I kind of forget what the math books do, so hopefully that makes sense to everybody. 2 pi r. We should all know 2 pi r. Area is pi r squared, and I certainly have seen over the years sometimes people get confused and forget, wait a minute, was it 2 pi r squared or pi r squared? No, it's good to have those straight. And again, we live in an era now where it's so easy to look things up. I start to screw things up more often now. It's different than when I was a student, I think, and we were kind of required to memorize stuff a little bit more, but in this class, I do let people have notes, generally speaking, for exams and things like that, because sometimes you just forget a formula. But the real question is, how do you use the information, right? You have to have some understanding. If you just look up everything, you're not really a thinking human, I think. And I hope I didn't insult anyone by saying that. But anyways, but these formulas in that sense, I've got them here. I may still have some of these. Like for a sphere, we got the surface area of a sphere and we got the volume of a sphere. Those are a little bit exotic, so I could totally understand if somebody wanted to write that on their sheet of notes or have that on a note or just Google that as you need to. Keep in mind that for exams, maybe Googling is a little bit more frowned upon, and depending on the conditions may not be allowed or accessible for you. So in that sense, having it written down if you think you're going to forget, if you think it might come up, which I don't know, it depends. I've sometimes been willing to, like, if I ask a question, I don't really care to know whether you could memorize the volume of a sphere. I will sometimes put that in the question as a reminder, so I try to remember to do that sometimes. So again, don't worry about memorizing all these. There's volume of a cylinder there. This program I use for this slide does a horrible job with L's. So I could have also done maybe pi r squared h for the height of the cylinder, but I was thinking L for length. But that L could be mixed up with like an I very easily, I think, or a capital I perhaps. And then there was the cone. That's totally one. I think that's in the category of like, if you didn't know it, just Google it, right? Or if you're in a really advanced calculus class, maybe you know how to get to that. Anyways, we'll look at some examples using these here, but a lot of this is meant to be review of geometry, but again, maybe not like totally exhaustive or unabridged review of it.